And 3, 2, 1. Welcome all into the Unofficial WCC Hoops Podcast live edition. As we are watching night one of West Coast Conference action, 3 of the 4 games are complete. The fourth, St. Mary's and San Diego, are just about done. And I'll have to say, this was a way more exciting opening day, opening night than I really anticipated. This one looked way We had 3, I thought, really competitive games, at least early on. St. Mary's at San Diego, and this one is actually still down to a 10-point game with only a couple minutes left to go. So this one is not finished yet either. San Francisco Pacific went to overtime with the Dons coming out on top. Santa Clara and LMU were neck and neck in that first half before the Broncos started to pull away in that one. And of course, Gonzaga, Pepperdine, the Zags did pull away early in that one. But yeah, I'm just going to go through and just kind of talk about what were some of the key things. And there was a lot in here. So we'll start with the Zags and start with just what we saw from that squad earlier tonight. They had the early game in the WCC slate, and for them, it was really about starting to look like who we all thought they were. They really went back to their defensive roots. I thought that was something that was really, really key for this Gonzaga team. They played much better defense and much more connected in this game against Pepperdine. Pepperdine really struggled throughout that contest. The 3 leading scorers for them, Michael Ajayi, Houston Millette, and Javon Porter, at one point were a combined 2 for 17. And we also got to see on the offensive end this team look more like themselves. Graham Ike had 13 in the first half, 20 for the game. Nolan Hickman, 4 for 5 from 3, 14 points. Ryan Nemhard hit his first 3 since early December. So new year, new Gonzaga look, because this was a team that really did look more like the part of what we thought we would see as we went throughout the course of the season. And as we're starting to look at this, as we're starting to kind of like dive into what Gonzaga is, we all talked about like they have kind of like easy going here. They need to get right. They had Pepperdine tonight. They'll have San Diego in a couple of days, and this is going to just be a great time for Gonzaga to start to figure out who else might be one of the more reliable players, and also start to give a little bit more of a breather for the likes of a Ryan Hemmard. We'll give a little bit more break to Nolan Hickman, because they're playing a ton of minutes right now. And even in this game tonight, I actually do have to go through the official stats, because ESPN doesn't give you the actual minute by minute, at least not tonight yet. So we'll look into that and talk about that. Pepperdine, just on the flip side, was so rushed, felt so out of sync most of this game. And honestly, like the energy they had early on was kind of exciting to see, because that it looked like they might give Gonzaga a little bit more of a push. I thought, were able to attack the basket well. I thought they were making shots a little bit more difficult for Ek and for Anton Watson early on. Obviously, that didn't hold, but the activity that I saw from Pepperdine was kind of an encouraging thing to see. And seeing Javon Porter back on the floor was an encouraging thing to see. So for Pepperdine, I mean, it was very much a Gonzaga Pepperdine game, much what you thought that game would look like. Zags get out big early, they hold late, and they just absolutely envelop that team, which is exactly what they did tonight. And all right, so now that I have it pulled up, I can actually find the box score. We can go through that. Where did it go? Here we go. And And looking at the minutes played, so again, Nemhard and Hickman did get to play a fewer minutes in this one. Ryan Nemhard about 31 and a half, Nolan Hickman 32 minutes. So good run, and I think great that the two of them are able to get a little bit more of a breather going into the weekend against San Diego, who just wrapped up against St. Mary's, and an impressive outing, I think, for both teams, honestly. St. Mary's, the backcourt looked like what we thought we might see throughout the course of the year. And this San Diego team may actually have something here because this was a San Diego team that won 10 games in the preseason. I I mean, the going into the year, I still had them bottom half, and I still do think that that's about where they're going to end up just because of their youth and their inexperience. But this team came out ready to play. This team came out on fire. Deuce Turner, geez, Deuce Turner he could not be stopped in that first half and really could not be stopped throughout the course of the game. He had 23 points in the first half, 34 for the game. He was just incredible tonight. It seemed like it didn't matter where he was. Like some of the 3-pointers he made, he was 4 for 7 from three. He was about 30 feet from the basket, heading to the lane against a very good interior defense from St. Mary's. San Diego, I think, is going to be more of a problem than a lot of us thought going into the year, going into the season. So this is going to be really interesting to watch this team as we continue to go along, because San Diego, I think, has a chance to maybe steal some games from some of the teams that expect to do well in this league. They pushed St. Mary's tonight. St. Mary's did win 81-70. And flipping over to St. Mary's, this was the Aiden Mahaney bounce back game. This was the Aiden Mahaney we all expected to see. 25 points tonight, 6 assists, 8 for 11 from the field, 4 for 7 from three. That's the guy that everybody said was a potential All-American. That's the guy that many people thought could be WCC Player of the Year. As we enter the WCC season, it's right on time, right on schedule. And what also was really positive to see for St. Mary's was it was a total backcourt outing tonight, because Augustus Marshallonis, who has been playing really well the last month, continued to play well tonight. He had 16 points. He had 10 assists, his first career double-double. So the backcourt combined for 41 points, 16 assists. Marshallonis, 5 for 8 from the field, 2 for 3 from three. He's starting to do it all. He had 3 steals on the night. This is starting to look like the backcourt we thought we would see before the year. Aiden Mahaney playing the way he did tonight, Augustus Marshallonis playing the way he did tonight. This is the group. These are the guys we expected to see. And again, night one in the WCC, we'll see how it actually starts to tick up for this team. They do head down to LA, or they take the quick flight up from San Diego to LA to take on LMU on Saturday. And that's going to be an interesting matchup as well. An LMU team that is struggling, and we'll get into LMU in a little bit. But this is a good sign for St. Mary's. Seeing those two be really efficient, be the offensive potent punch that we thought they could be, is incredibly positive as we get into WCC play, and as this team is looking to try to climb back in some level into the at-large conversation. They are still really on the outside looking in. I still think as of right now, they're still going to have to make sure that they are positioned well and playing well enough when we get to the tournament in Las Vegas that they have a shot. But for right now, it's just check off the box. You got San Diego out the way. You do have LMU next. And LMU is a team that has been struggling over the last, really, like, they're a team that they've struggled, but there's still potential for that squad, which kind of makes them a scary team. Now they have lost 3 or 4, which is obviously them heading in the wrong direction. They lost to Santa Barbara. They lost to Colorado State. They did give Colorado State a really good game in that one. They lost to Tarleton State, which is obviously not good. And then they lost at home to Santa Clara just tonight. Uh, LMU shot 29% from the field. They their starting backcourt, Will Johnston and Dominic Harris, were combined 2 for 23 from the field. That's not going to cut it. That's not going to get it done. It was nice to see Kelly Pepe play well again, 14 points, 6 rebounds for him. But this is an LMU team that still, I think, is trying to find its identity, has still not been able to figure out how to get wins against quality opponents. And Santa Clara going down there, we know, was a quality opponent. We know Santa Clara has also struggled as of late in a lot of games. They have not won back-to-back games in a while. Going into the contest, they had lost 6 of 9. So this was a big win, big road win for Santa Clara to get them off the mat and have them pointed in the right direction. For this one, it's like, hey, this was their defense, and then this was the backcourt all over again. Adama Ball, 21 points, Carlos Marshall Jr., 13 and 7 rebounds. And Brenton Napper also played really well in this one, 10 points, 7 rebounds for him. And this was largely an outing for the starting lineup. Did not get much from the bench in this one, got 10 total points from the bench. So this was really the starters taking the lead on this one. They won 68-57 against the Lions in LA. So the teams that came away with wins, Santa Clara, St. Mary's, Gonzaga, the teams we all thought that would pick up wins today did pick up wins. And I think we've seen a lot tougher games than maybe we thought. Now, Santa Clara and LMU, I thought was going to be a tough game no matter what. San Diego gave St. Mary's way more of a game than I thought they were going to. And I think that says a lot about what the direction that program is going, that we knew that the San Diego team was going to be young and still trying to figure out a lot of things, but they're looking good. There's promise to that San Diego squad. And I think that's not something we could have said even just a little while ago. And now what turned out to actually be maybe the game of the night, and definitely wasn't expecting it to be the game of the night, was USF and Pacific. This game went to overtime. USF had to claw their way back into this contest. USF did lead at the half, 42-35. Pacific crawled their way back in, took a lead late, had a 5-point lead with less than a minute to go. And Jonathan Mobo scored the last 5 to be able to force overtime. And it really was just once they got to overtime, it really felt that USF was able to control the game a little bit more and almost kind of breathe a bit and get back on track. Even though Pacific did still have its shots in overtime and to be able to win that contest, this was a gritty performance by USF because defensively, this was not the normal Dons team we're used to seeing to this point in the season. They allowed a season high 50% shooting from the field for Pacific. Pacific scored a season high 88 points in this game. But USF got a monster performance from their best player, from who I think who is arguably the player of the year, Jonathan Mobo, 30 points, 18 rebounds, 10 for 10 from the free throw line. He was the do-it-all for USF again. And he hit the last couple free throws to seal the deal for the Dons. This guy he seems to always just be in the right place at the right time. And he just seems to be getting better and better as the season is going on. And there are not going to be too many teams who I think are going to be able to match up well with him. Now, obviously, like I think the few teams that are going to, I think Santa Clara is in that conversation. I think Gonzaga is in that conversation, and I think St. Mary's is in that conversation because those are all teams that are built with size. But USF just has so many options to go to outside of just Mobo. Malik Thomas at 21 tonight. He is continuing to get better and better as the season's going on. Marcus Williams didn't have a great game tonight. 5 for 15 from the field, but he still had 14 points. He had 7 assists, so he was able to contribute in other ways. And we also got to see, and we already know that Ryan Beasley is one of the more trusted guys off the bench for this squad, and he came through with 9 points, hit all 5 of his free throws. So this is a well balanced team. This is a deeper team. Talked about that on the podcast just this past week. You can go back and listen to the full thing if you want to hear more on that. But this USF squad, to me, is the most balanced. They have so many different playmakers that in games like this, it gives them options. Ryan Beasley was the one who set up the tip in for Mobo to send it to overtime, which may have been actually the best closing option that they had. And this was a scenario and a situation that USF had been struggling with for a while. They had had so many close opportunities to win games, whether that be against Grand Canyon, against Boise State, against Utah State, and it didn't pan out. They had another opportunity, unexpectedly, another opportunity in this game against Pacific, and they were able to close the deal and get it done. But also, sigh of relief for USF because we talked about them and being just like on that outskirts, still looking in as far as an at-large contention or being talked about in that way. A loss to Pacific would have eliminated that possibility. Pacific hovering down at 357 near the bottom in the net. So a loss to Pacific for anybody in that scenario, in USF scenario, is going to be a devastating one. So USF coming away with the win is a huge relief. And I'm almost going to be certain that they're not going to be taking Pacific. I don't think they took Pacific lightly, but I do. But I think they're going to be better prepared for Pacific the next time they have to see them up on the hilltop. So this night was way more exciting than I think I thought it was going to be. A lot more happened on this night in night one. Because I kind of wrote off at least 3 of these games where I thought San Diego St. Mary's would be a runaway. I thought that Pacific USF would be a runaway. Gonzaga Pepperdine ended up being the runaway that I think we all thought it would be. But the one thing that we have seen is that as we've gone over just how maybe a lot of teams have not played up to their potential and the league might be down as a whole, that might mean that a lot of these teams are closer than we originally thought, that many of these teams are closer than we originally thought. And that's going to be good for some teams, and that may not be so good for others. But a lot of good things came out of tonight. I thought that San Diego, again, even for some of the teams who lost, Pacific playing the way they did, I think is a good sign. Shows some growth from them. Did have some notes actually on that. What was it? Lasan Hallams Jr. had 25 points for Pacific. Want to also mention Mo Odom, who had a double-double, 19 points, 10 assists. He hit a big 3 toward the end of regulation that initially looked like it could have been the dagger to knock USF out. They had 4 players in double figures tonight. Again, they scored a season high 88. So I think there was something to be said, something to take out of that game for Pacific, that this might have been the best game they've played all year long. And for this to be the first game in WCC play might bode well for their success as we go through the rest of the next couple months. For San Diego, again, I think kind of similarly. I think what we saw in the non-conference, them going 10-5, was validated a little bit more by what we saw them do against St. Mary's tonight, especially a St. Mary's team that had its backcourt play well, that had Marshallonis and Mahaney play to the expectation that many had, and San Diego still played one of its better games of the year. Probably its best game, obviously, being Arizona State in that upset win. But this San Diego team is going to be scrappy. I really like the fact that they tried to do something different against USF. They played smaller. They tried to play faster, using a lot more traps. They played a lot of zone in that game, especially in the first half. And I think it was working. I think it was frustrating St. Mary's to a point. This was a St. Mary's team who had struggled mightily shooting threes to this point of the season. And it forced St. Mary's to do something that they hadn't done almost all year long. And to the Gales' credit, they did. They went 10 for 25 from three, 40%. So they were forced to run an offense that are maybe not as comfortable with, or haven't been as successful with, I should say, to this point of the season. And they came through, especially in that building. Like, that building has been a house of horrors for St. Mary's over the years. Remember last year, it was at Jenny Craig Pavilion where they almost lost to San Diego. I think they had a 20-point lead and it got down to 3 because St. Mary's forgot to score for about 8 minutes. Very much like we've seen them do throughout the course of the last, say, X number of years. We've seen that. So after night one, Gonzaga 1-0, St. Mary's 1-0, USF 1-0, and Santa Clara 1-0. I mean, the 4 teams that were largely expected to be 1, 2, 3, 4 right now are 1, 2, 3, and 4. The one idle team was Portland, so they will pick up on Saturday. And then the one team, let's see, I had the note here of who has the bye on Saturday. That, I believe, is going to be WCC games. USF will have the bye on Saturday, so they will at least be undefeated going into next week, where the Dons they'll be traveling to San Diego, and then they will be coming back home to take on Portland. So they also have a little bit of a lighter schedule early on, much like Gonzaga does. So for the other teams, Gonzaga is going to be taking on, they have San Diego. So the 4 games on Saturday: Pacific at Portland, St. Mary's at LMU, San Diego at Gonzaga, and then Santa Clara at Pepperdine. I think there's some really interesting matchups in here. St. Mary's LMU, I think, is going to be one where this St. Mary's heads to a building where they lost a year ago. LMU coming off a loss where they did not play well much at all. And this is, I think, going to be a battle of the guards, because if Mahaney and Marshallonis play like they did tonight, I think it's going to be really challenging for LMU to pick up a win in that one. And on the flip side, if you see more out of Dom Harris and Will Johnston for the Lions, that could be the upset watch going into the weekend. Pacific and Portland is going to be fascinating because, I mean, let's be honest, these two are probably going to finish near the bottom, if not at the bottom of the league. So this could be a huge leg up on staying out of the cellar on whoever can win that matchup up at the Chiles Center. And San Diego going to the Kennel. I mean, this team has shown no fear to this point. They went toe-to-toe with Arizona State and pulled out a comeback victory there. They went toe-to-toe with St. Mary's and did not actually give way at any point. Now, going to the Kennel is a completely different animal, is a completely different thing. And if Gonzaga plays anything like they did tonight, I would expect a pretty lopsided score very early on, and for that to continue in that one. Santa Clara and Pepperdine, for those two, it's about the consistency for Santa Clara, because they have not won back-to-back games in almost a month and a half. and they did pick up the win at LMU. So now they head up the PCH to take on the Waves. And Pepperdine coming home after loss to Gonzaga could be a little bit of a relief that they're not having to see Gonzaga and get somebody else. But there might be a little bit of a hangover because energy wise, I mean, I thought they brought it at least early on in that contest. They just weren't good enough. They just did not shoot well enough to stay in that contest for very long. So we know Santa Clara is a very good shooting team. I expect them to shoot well against Pepperdine as well. The challenge there will be whether or not the Broncos can slow Pepperdine down, because we know Pepperdine has the weapons and can definitely get that go up and down for the course of the night. All right. So not going to belabor this all too much. I'm going to read through actually some of the comments here. I thank you for actually leaving some comments. Yeah, it's like maybe Robert. Yeah, maybe USF's depths did work against them a little bit tonight. When you have so many options, maybe it's hard to pick who the one option is going to be. And now I think, I mean, we're starting to see Malik Thomas be a little bit more of one of those guys who's going to be on top of it night in and night out. But the switching of Ryan Beasley and between he and then also Sharav Jones, who really didn't play all too much tonight, and maybe that was just an effectiveness move by Coach Gerlefson. That I think that the rotation will get tightened up as now that we're in the WCC play. We see that a lot with coaches as we get deeper. That'll get tightened up. We'll see who actually stays in the rotation. A lot of guys will stay. It'll be maybe 8 deep, 7 deep as we get toward the middle of conference. And I agree. Like another one of the comments saying that I don't think USF has played their best. I completely agree. I don't think we've seen them at their best yet. The most complete game probably from them was early on against Minnesota. I thought that was the most complete complete game that we had seen USF play. Defensively, offensively, they were so connected in that one. That was one where I really thought that they look like the high ceiling potential team that USF squad can be. And yeah, USF will have some things to work out. They do have a extra few days to be able to figure that out without a game this Saturday. So plenty of time for them to figure out, but also like don't want it to be too many off days, especially at this point. USF has only played 2 games in the last 3 weeks. They've had a lot of downtime, a lot of off time. And USF maybe is still shaking off some of that rust. She'll shaking off some of that. I mean, they didn't show it last week, but maybe that was kind of the outlier as opposed to what is going to be the norm on that. All right. So crazy night 1 in the WCC, 3 really close games, 3 really tight games, at least until later in those contests. USF escapes the upset against Pacific. We'll get to talking more about what's going to be happening in the WCC next week. New episode coming on probably Monday or Tuesday. So stay tuned for that. And I'm going to try to do these lives every Thursday after our WCC slate. So that will be at least the pattern for the rest of January. We do get kind of crazy at the end of January where we start having our Tuesday games, Wednesday games, and we start moving the calendar around a little bit more. All right. Well, that'll do it for me. Thanks for hopping on. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And then also, if you're watching on Twitch, be sure to follow there. And then also follow on social media at Post by Zach on all the channels. All right. Have a good night, everybody. And I will catch you later.